It's Zach Eady with Purdue men's basketball, and you're watching Boilers in the Stands.
Welcome back, everyone. This is Boilers in the Stands. I'm your host, Greg Braggs Jr. Alongside me, as always, is Craig Bowers and Joe Jackson. And joining us here tonight is special guest, former Boilermaker legend, former head coach here, Cuonzo Martin. Thank you for carving out some time and jumping on here on Boilers in the Stands.
Well, thank you all for having me.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We'll dig right into it because I know you're getting ready to go head on over to Etwan more, and we love Etwan as well. So don't want to take up too much of your time, but kind of want to work our way from the beginning to where we're at now, and certainly want to start with your playing days. You know, obviously back-to-back Big Ten champion. You know, you had a illustrious career. I think the thing that stood out to me the most was, Craig here, our super producer here, putting some stats of your career. A guy that shot 0% from three in his first 2 years, and then was able to flip the script and shoot over 40% from three. And at one point start setting records for threes made in a game in tournament. Yeah, I always hear Matt Painter talk about, well, you got to be able to do it in practice before I start letting you do it in games.
Yes.
How were you able to transform your career, from how you started to how you ended it?
It wasn't easy, but it took a lot of hard work. And I say that because when I transitioned from high school to college, in high school I was 6'5", but I played around the rim. And in our high school style, we pressed the whole game, then we get back into a 2-3 zone. So we made it real tough on teams. So my transition to college was more man-to-man motion offense and a lot of set plays. So really had to learn how to play on the perimeter. I didn't shoot the three ball at all in high school, so I had to work on that. So I didn't shoot it at all my freshman year either. My sophomore year, I started working on shooting the three ball, and I was 0 for 6 from the field. And then coach, we went in the huddle as a team, and I can't remember, it was after 10 or 11 games. Coach just said, Zoe, stop shooting threes. And I thought he meant for a couple games, he meant for the season. So I never shot another three the rest of the season. And I was fine with that, but I continued to work on it. And then the next 2 years, I had great numbers as far as making three-point shots. And I think the biggest key was the reps, but it was also the confidence, because it got to a point in games. I would pull up from three on a 3-on-1 break. I had that level of confidence, but also knew coach believed that I would work extremely hard. So he knew I was about winning, but my confidence was at a high level, so it felt good.
Yeah, and one of the questions we always like to ask former players is just why Purdue? What was it with Coach Katie, West Lafayette, Purdue University, whatever? What is it that made you choose Purdue in the end?
Well, it really came down to when I was coming out of high school, because I was kind of following LaFonso Ellis' lead. LaFonso went to Notre Dame, so he was my high school teammate. But at the time, we thought he was going to Illinois, but things changed. And then for me, it was about Illinois because, again, proximity of Champaign to East St. Louis, and there was a pipeline of football players, but also just regular student people that went to Illinois as well. So for me, it was Illinois. Then all of a sudden, they got in some NCAA trouble, but Purdue and UConn was always there. They recruited just as high of a level. And Coach Frank Kendrick and also Bruce Weber did a tremendous job. And then for me, it just came down to the night before I was about to make a decision. It was between Purdue and Connecticut. And I remember my mom saying, I don't remember every word. Let me go back. First, when Coach Katie came to the house, in a nutshell, out of all the stuff he said, if he go to class every day, he'll get a degree. If he work hard, he will play. He didn't make any promises, but he said, if he go to class every day, he'll get a degree. If he work hard, he will play. And then the night before I was about to make the decision, And I was a little emotional, not tears running down my eyes, but I was just a little emotional because, again, the recruiting process can take a toll on you. And then my mom just said, Coach Katie seems like a good man. And I think that kind of validated for me. And it was a great decision because, again, Coach, he stood on his every word. Everything he said in recruiting, he held true to that. And he's part of the reason why I stand here today.
Yeah, and as you look through your Purdue career, obviously a couple Big Ten titles, an Elite Eight, things like that. Is there a moment, like one singular moment that kind of stands out to you from your Purdue career as kind of one of your favorites?
Man, great question. There's so many. I think, just the camaraderie of being with your teammates. And truthfully, if people don't know, I always say I have 3 Big Ten championships. So it's up to you to research it. And the reason why I say I have 3, those guys were like my brothers when I left. I mean, you're talking Brandon Brantley, Roy Harrison, Todd Foster, Herb Dove, Justin Jennings, all those guys. So they were like family. So it's like I really claim 3. So it's up to you to do the research to know that it's 2. But I think the memories for me, man, just to be around the guys in the locker room, international trips, man, because you become brothers. And we have a text stream today. We stay in touch all the time. But I'll try to give you a game. When we lost in 94. We lost at home to Michigan. It might have been 65, 66, 67. They beat us at home. It was tough. And it was tough in the locker room because Coach went at everybody, just went at everybody. And then we had to go to Michigan to at least tie for the title. We had to go to beat Michigan to tie for it. And we were down, I think we were down, it was 1:20 left, and we were down 6 or 7. We were down 7. And we came back and won the game. And Glenn made that spin move, pulled up in the lane, shot. And they had another possession ball game. And then we had to go to Northwestern to win it outright. They lost at Northwestern and we won it outright. But it was a great feeling. So I think, but winning the championships, man, I think it's really a byproduct, man, to all the stuff we went through, we had to go through to get to where we were trying to go as a team, man. It was a lot of hard work, those tough, grimy summers, 6 a.m., man, weightlifting. And for me, it was 6 a.m. weightlifting with the team because I never went to summer school because I worked a job. So you're talking 6 a.m. with the team, then I work on my game a little bit and also had to get rehab on my knees and then go work, and then we play at night at 5 o'clock. And you're talking doing that for 4 years, man. That takes a physical toll on you. So you got to be committed to the task at hand if you want to be great, because there's a tremendous sacrifice that goes into it.
You're muted, Briggs.
Yeah, sorry. We're taking a muted $5 in the jar. We're taking a look. If you're listening on an audio right now, we're showing some pictures of your playing days, though. One question I had in a picture that really stuck out to me was this one here, where you're going up here against Jalen Rose and the Fab Five. I think college basketball, everybody talks about the glory days of the NBA being in the 90s. I'm certainly one of those people that would say that. I was born in 85 and growing up in Northwest Indiana, Michael Jordan, that's what raised me and my passion for this game. And the Fab Five were right in the thick of that too. Just a whirlwind of just basketball renaissance. What was that like for you to go up against those teams and being a part of that era?
Well, I think when you're a student athlete, you're just in the moment, so you're not really consumed with all the periphery that goes with it, because they're just like, you're just trying to beat those guys. But I think when you take a step back and you remove yourself from the situation, the same amount of impact that Michael Jordan had on the NBA, those guys had on the college game.
Oh, shoot.
See, I asked a Michigan question.
They played with a high level of swag, a high level of confidence. They were skilled. They were talented. They had, you're talking about 5 or 6 guys that were pros, first-round picks on that team. So they had all the parts to be very successful, man. And so when you in it, you just in it as a student athlete. You're just competing because there were so many other good players. But when you look back, because I was talking about it last week, and Glenn and I were talking about just the magnitude of that team and what they brought to the table was fun to see. Now you go back and watch those games, and you realize those guys were 18 and 19 years old, doing it at a high level under a lot of scrutiny as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And you bring up Big Dog, obviously playing alongside the greatest Purdue Boilermaker ever. Another Northwest Indiana guy, another region guy. I had the pleasure of seeing him in high school. I was a young buck. When he was in high school, I was a young little baby, but at the same time, I can remember, those matchups. Lou Wallace was still a school around here, and there were Maryville High School always put out some pretty good teams, and it was fun to watch Glenn Robinson, out of Roosevelt. Then he goes to Purdue and has an illustrious career, stays in the Midwest and gets to Milwaukee. What was that like for you to play alongside the big dog?
It was a tremendous honor because I consider a guy like that a brother. We were obviously roommates for 3 years, and he went in the draft in '94. But just to be around him, he was tough as nails. He was a fierce competitor. He worked extremely hard. He took a lot of pride, even in the practice. I mean, he practiced hard. And it was almost, we used to say it all the time, he played as if he was trying to put food on the table. And that's how he played the game. And the thing with him, coming into college, he was a prop 48, and I was a guy that was a prop as well. For those that don't know, you had to sit out, do the academic rigor. So SAT scores more or less and ACT scores. So, but the year I sat out, I went to prep school. So when I came in, so the year he sat out, it was my freshman year, and he was sitting out. And he would go over to the co-rec and work out because he couldn't be a part of the team. Per NCAA rules, he couldn't work out with the guys. So he'd work out the co-rec, work on his game. He would have to run in different areas. Really couldn't be a part of the team. And that was a tough thing to deal with. So when I would come home at night, we would talk all the time just about different things. And when I was struggling with my game, he would always say, keep your head up, keep your composure, continue to work. So it was a great camaraderie there because, we leaned on each other when times got hard. And the thing about him, when being a prop 48, he maximized everything in that classroom because, you hear on the peripheral, he's not a good student, he's just an athlete, or dumb jock. You hear all that stuff, and he heard it. So he took a tremendous amount of pride in the classroom to make sure he got it done. And our freshman, he got at least a 3.1. And you guys know as well as I do, Purdue don't give out grades. You got to earn it. And he would always, as talented as he was as a player, he would always compete. But the other thing he did, now these are the VHS tapes for those that remember, but he would get those, we get those VHS tapes after the practices and after games, and he would watch it. He would watch his highlights, but he would also watch areas where he needed to grow. So he took pride in that. So he wasn't just a guy that was a gifted talent. He studied the game. He tried to become the best version of himself he could be.
Gotcha.
Yeah, man.
A little more lighthearted question here about your playing days. I was listening to a podcast you did with a Purdue faculty or Purdue athletics the other day, and they were talking about the fact that you like to come up with nicknames for everybody. And somewhere in there, it got dropped that you used to call Matt Painter Stash, but they never explained why. So I got to know what the story is behind Matt Painter being nicknamed Stash.
Man, it's crazy. I don't know how, and I've been doing it since I was a kid. And I don't purposely give people nicknames. It's just like a name. I say they might do something. Like, for example, you guys remember the walk-on, we had Tim Irvin. Tim Irvin was like a brother to me as well. Me, him, and Matt Waddell, we were singers together. Now, Tim Irvin is probably 5'6", 5'6", and I call him Large. And that's his name. So his name is Large. I mean, that's what I call him. I forget sometimes it's Tim. So in Paint's name, so if you look back, my freshman I always had the mustache, but I had the mustache. So Coach Paint would call me Mustache, then he would call me Stash. So I just flipped it. So that's how I started calling him Stash. Now it's crazy because he didn't have a mustache, but that's how he got the name Stash, because he would call me that. But that's what I call him. So I have to be careful when I'm around the players of the team and make sure I say Coach Paint. But that's how he got the name Stash.
Well, here's a picture of you two going up against each other in practice. Were you giving them the business here?
No, those just defensive slides. I mean, just alley drills. I mean, Coach Paint he was a good player, man. He was one of those guys that can play a 1, 2, and a 3 back then, and he knew all the plays. He understood what was going on. So he's really, back then we said coach on the floor. He was really that guy, and coach could plug him in different areas because he fit in, smooth transition and make everything go. But he was good at what he was brought in to do a lot of things. And he had good size. And as you know, when you guys around him, he's 6'6". I mean, you don't realize he's that big.
Well, I revealed to him when we had him on before the show, before the season. I revealed to him because we've just started covering the team on a closer level, being credentialed here the last few years. And as friendly as he is, as funny as he is, because he is very funny, he scares the living daylights out of me. He's got this look. He's got this like sharp look at you when you're asking a question. Like, you want to make sure you ask a serious, a good basketball question, because he's just got this. I compare it to like a velociraptor. He's like staring through your soul. And I got the distinct feeling halfway through last year, he knew that he was scaring me, and there was a part of him enjoying a little bit of it.
Okay. No, he's a good man. He's a good man. And
yes.
He's a great coach, a great leader. And Purdue should be happy to have him.
100%. I'm close with Sasha Stefanovic, and watching his evolution through this program and watching the way Matt treated him and worked with him and grew him into the person he is, and now he's a coach here. I have a lot of respect for Matt Painter without question.
Beautiful.
And we can kind of jump to if you had something, go for it.
No, go ahead, Joe.
I was going to say, we can kind of jump to, your career as a coach. You start as an assistant under Katie. You are an assistant under Painter as well for a couple of years. What was that like? One, just taking that jump from being a player to coaching, but then also working under, two of the best coaches you can name.
It was easy from the standpoint of being around good people. But it was hard because there was a lot of learning, because my transition straight from professional basketball into coaching. Well, I had a pit stop at West Lafayette High School, which that was a great experience for me. Coach Dave Wood allowed me to be a part of this program. So that was a really good jump start to transition to Purdue's team. So with being with Purdue, the only thing I really relied on, because you're talking about Coach Katie with a tremendous amount of knowledge. So now you're trying to gather all this information from Coach, and he's teaching a new team. He's also teaching me, and he's teaching his staff. So what I try to do when I was under Coach is be an extension of him, but more importantly, be one of the players. And I really try to translate everything to the players, what Coach is looking for. Because sometimes when Coach get after you, it was easy for me to say, this is what he means, this is what he wants from me, this is what he's trying to do, or this is what he's saying, because I played for him and it was fresh in my mind. And I think that really helped with the younger guys, because again, in order to be successful, Coach has to get you to a level. Just like with Coach Payne, I got to get you to a high level. Now, it's going to be uncomfortable, but if you trust me, we'll be all right. And I think that was the biggest thing. I was that bridge between, Coach and the players. And the same thing with Coach Payne. Coach Payne came in with a lot of knowledge, and I never took for granted with either one of those guys that I had a relationship with. I did the job to the best of my ability, and I didn't take the relationship for granted. And both great learning experience. And though they, in the ballpark, same, but they're also very different. They're very different in how they go about it. And I think that's the unique thing about both of them. And they both have been very successful at it.
Yeah. On that note, there was several of you in that Gene Katie coaching tree. And besides you and Matt Painter, Steve Lavin, Bruce Weber, Kevin Stallings, Link Darner. Even though you guys all go about it in a different way, maybe have a different style of playing basketball, was there any common thread that you could see between all of you of something that you guys all took from Coach Katie?
I think integrity. Character. Be true to who you are. Because even on your bad days, you can still stand strong because you operated with integrity and character. And I think those are the great things about what Coach brought to the table, the consistency in which you operate. Be firm in your beliefs, and you also have to be consistent with how you approach young men. Though times change, but you still got to love them the same way. But also everybody loves differently, because we also have to understand discipline is another form of love. And sometimes guys don't feel that until they get into your program and it gets uncomfortable early. But you got to stay consistent. You got to stay true to what you're doing, and you got to allow guys to see success. And every now and then as a coach, you got to give them those pats on the back. Because those pats on the back will go a long way. You got to let young men know, I appreciate what you're doing. And I think with Coach Payne and Coach Weber, all these guys linked on, they're great at what they do because they show a level of appreciation to their players.
You're on mute again, Greg. $10 in the jar today.
$10. Yeah, you would think I'd know better, but I don't. Yeah, it's funny you bring that up about discipline being another form of love. I mean, my wife and I literally were just having this conversation last night. I have a 5-year-old daughter, and I give her tough love, and even though she's only 5, and we were talking about how we want to be parents as she gets older and going through those, stages of their life where it's kid versus parent, and the parent, and I told her, I go, we got a good cop, bad cop this. You can't always be worried about how much she likes us. It should be about respect us first and trust us, and then like us. That like us is down the list of things that are important as a parent, and I'm sure for you as a coach, that's even more layered because you're dealing with such different personalities, and everybody kind of has to be managed differently. So it's interesting to hear your insights on that. When you talk about Gene Katie as a coach, what did he mean for you personally, and what do you think he has meant to this program and what Purdue is?
Well, he meant a lot to me, just in my growth and my development from a young man into a man. Because what happens, it's just like all those young men that are on Purdue's basketball team right now, their parents and their guardians passed the baton to Coach Payne. That's the same thing my mom did to Coach Katie. She passed the baton. And her whole thing was just be right by my son. And right is not necessarily what happens to me on the basketball court. Make sure my son works toward getting that degree. That was the biggest thing for my mom, because that was an accomplishment for her. The basketball part, she could, hey, that's on you, son. You do what you do and make it the best you can do. But if my son can get a degree from this university, then we've accomplished something. So that's the biggest thing we have to understand when parents transition their kids to universities and coaches. But I'm not just giving you $5. I'm giving you my child. This is my life. This is an extension of me. So whatever happened on the court, because nobody's ever going to be happy. Purdue can cut down the nets this year. Not everybody's going to be happy. Somebody want to play. That's in every team, every sport. We understand that. But we have to be consistent on, are we treating the young men right? Are we making sure they're getting the meals they need to get? Are they getting the proper rest? Are they getting the proper rehab? Are we doing all those things that we're supposed to do as leaders and as men, as father figures? We got to make sure we're consistent in that area, because the ball will take care of itself. The ball going to bounce for certain guys different ways, but we got to make sure we're consistent on how we treat them. And I think Coach was fair to me. Coach gave me an opportunity, and I took advantage of everything he gave me. And he's, again, part of the reason why I sit where I sit today.
When you talk about being a coach and being a father figure, well, then it also crosses with your son, Chase, who's with Purdue right now. What was that like for you and Chase growing up, and knowing that you had this coaching aspect, from your knowledge, but you're coming from it from a, parents, standpoint, and trying to be a father first and then helping, in a basketball sense, as a coach second?
Well, just like my other 2 children, along with Chase, it's just, if you're in sport, you got to have perseverance. You got to have determination. You got to have resiliency. You got to have fight. And you got to be able to dig deep. Now, that has nothing to do with your skill. Nothing to do with your skill. These areas we can control. Every time now you can control this area of life, because you do these things in life, you'll be successful in life. So for him, it's just a joy for me to see him. But again, I mean, my happiness for him when I saw him being born, that was, so now I'm not sure anything could get better than that. I mean, he's my son, he's my life, he is my life. So whatever that is, he is me. But when it comes to basketball, man, he has great coaches. I mean, I know those guys on the staff. I don't call those guys. None of that. I just, that because he has coaches, and I think a lot of parents need to understand, if you trust the coaches, then allow the coaches to do their job. As simple as that. Now, for me, it's making sure he continues to grow from a young man into a man. It's off the court. I'm not holding the staff accountable for this. This is me as a father. There's checks and balance, man. Are you good? How's your heart? How's your spirit? How's your mental toughness? All this stuff. So it's just his father talking to him. We rarely even talk about the team. I couldn't tell you what really goes on with the team, because that's his space and that's his place. And I never want him to be compromised on what goes on in his locker room. And that's very important to understand that, because I've been in locker rooms before, but I struggle sometimes watching Purdue games. I sometimes just listen, because it's as if I'm on the sideline, because the emotions that go with it, because I'm a part of that. One, because my son and I have relationships with the staff, so it's like I got to listen and I got to go out of the room. They could be up 20 or 30. When it's family, you feel that. But for my son, man, I just pray he has peace. That's all. And he become the man that God wants him to be.
I want to go back to you as a coach for another one. It's just, you had multiple stops as a head coach at the D1 level. I'm curious, what's the hardest part of, you show up to a new program and like that day one, that first month, what's the hardest part of that aspect of coaching?
Hey man, you better bring your shovel, because you got to do some digging, man. And you hope that digging is planting seeds and not caskets. I mean, it's a lot, because I've always been a guy when I take over programs, and I love that. I love taking over programs, broken programs, whatever you call them. I love that. It's a joy for me. Biggest thing for me, I've never been a guy when I take over a program, getting rid of guys and kicking guys off the team. Man, if you're part of the team, you want to be here, let's make it work. Now, there's only one guy that I didn't keep a part of a team when I took over a program, and because there were just certain things like, man, we have to move forward in this. I can't help in this situation. But other than that, man, if you want to be a part of it, let's make it work. And the hardest part is really I had several opportunities this past spring. And when I talk to the programs, and then all of a sudden I get off the phone, it's like, okay, you gotta get a staff. Now with name, image, and likeness, transfer portals, you probably got to get a whole new team. There's so many moving parts. You got to up and move, and all these things going on, which is no problem. I've done that for years, but it's like, man, this is. And then I start thinking about my daughter. It's like I can be here one more year with my daughter to make sure everything is good with her, because for years she was always the one tagging along. Why I got to go? Why I got to go? Well, now I got to be a part of what she's doing. She plays volleyball, so that's most important to me. But I think the hardest part when you're taking over a program, man, you go by yourself, and really you leave your family behind. And my wife has always been a warrior when it comes to that, because again, bringing the kids along and make sure the move is there, everything, and all the stuff, the moving, the furniture, new house, all this. And so she's doing it on her own, because I'm way ahead. The program, and people don't understand the stuff behind the scenes. They just see you take over a program where it's a lot that goes into it. And for me, it's making sure my wife is good with the move. You can easily make a move, but is she good with the move? We've operated as a team for 28 years, and we just keep rolling now. And it's worked out. And I think it's very important to understand you got to have a team around you in order for you to be successful with the team you're coaching.
Yeah, go ahead, Craig.
Yeah, as we look then, you had stops at Missouri State, at Cal, at Tennessee, and finished up there at Missouri. Noticed just and listened to your most recent podcast that you did with your wife here just recently. Why don't you tell us a little bit about what you're doing now with that podcast, and kind of what your mission or goal is with that?
Well, the podcast, I enjoy it. It all counts, and it's been a true joy for me. And I give everything I got to. I put my heart into it. I study, I research all the guests. And June of 22, I talked about it, and I just, ripping and running, I didn't do it. And this June of 23, I said, I need to go ahead and do it. I got to erase whatever level of fear it is and go ahead and do this podcast. And it's been a joy, man. But really, I want to be able to reach the world. And my whole goal has always been to assist the hopeless, the helpless, and the homeless in any way I can. And there's a lot of stuff my wife and I do behind the scenes. And that's the whole mission, man, just to reach people with my podcast, what people want to hear, what they need to know. How can this help somebody else? Like the podcast I did with my wife. Man, so many people have commented about that, people all over the country, just because you never really get that perspective from a coach or even his wife sitting there telling you the story from her lens of how she saw it. So I thought it was great, and I thought my wife did a phenomenal job. But it's just me just being transparent and giving everything I got, like I've always tried to do, man, because I think the world needs it. And I've never been a guy that runs from tough situations because, again, they've always said storms come to wake you up, shake you up, or break you up, and you got to make a decision. And for me in life, I choose to live my life through Christ and let the chips fall where they may.
Yeah, certainly. When you saw Matt, when you had Matt Painter on, you saw a clip make the rounds of, him being very open about racial inequality and the importance of, equality here, in sports and in life. And like you talked about, never being afraid to, you're not running from uncomfortable things. That's something I always talk about with some of my friends, and I work in media and I'm not afraid of the uncomfortable conversations. How important is that for you to put a light on that stuff and open that conversation up to people that, I just think in today's society, we've kind of gotten to this point where everybody goes in their like-minded corners and nobody ever wants to come across the middle and have uncomfortable conversations, even if there's a disagreement. But, with you having this platform and being able to bring on, Coach Painter or other people that want to, talk about some of these things that are important. How important is that for you?
I think it's very important. And I appreciate, Coach Paint being transparent and open. I thought he did a phenomenal job on that podcast. So all the Boilermakers need to go check that out. But this is a beautiful country. It is. And there's a lot of opportunities, a lot of resources. We have to continue to grow together. We have to continue to give more, do more, be more, live more, and we got to ultimately love more. I think that is the most important thing. I don't know why there's so much anger and hate. That blows my mind, because when my mom was raising us with very humble beginnings in East St. Louis, which East St. Louis is 100% Black, and it was never thought of, well, you only need to like this type of person, these type of people. Man, we didn't. When you're trying to survive, you don't have that kind of time. And my mother was built on love. So we have to do a better job in this country. And I just think, and you got to start somewhere. I mean, just like Purdue, I've always felt like Purdue was a phenomenal place. I thought it was a safe place. Because, people would ask me all the time, is West Lafayette or Purdue, what's the racial tension? And I said, man, I never experienced anything. I'm not saying other students didn't, so I'm not saying that. I never experienced anything. People embrace me. And oftentimes you're an athlete, it's a little bit different, but I never experienced anything, even when I was in the state of Indiana. And I just think Purdue fans have to be the leader when you're talking about how we treat people, even on social media. It blows my mind. Purdue loses a tough game in a tournament, which that happens. That's hard. But you're talking about a phenomenal coach, phenomenal team. And the coach, how will we feel if all of a sudden he says at the end of the year, well, I think I'm going to go somewhere else? And how will we feel then? So I think as Purdue fans, we have to really embrace our program. Let's stay away from the negativity. It's so easy to be on social media to say, man, if you're a part of Purdue family, talk about that. Be negative in home, be negative at the bar, be negative there, but not on social media, because, again, we need all the help and assistance in recruiting. We don't need negative stuff in recruiting to go on social media. If you're a true Purdue fan, man, it's okay to be mad. And I've always said you can really be mad if you're in the arena. That means you took time to come to the games. But we got to figure out a way to be better with that, because those players lay it on the line. They work hard. They're high-level guys. They go to class every day, do the right things to be successful. We got to applaud and appreciate that, man, because you never get these days back. But do you know how hard it is to win a Big Ten championship and the conference tournament? You know how hard that is? And now all of a sudden we're going to try to do it again this year with the target on our back. You know how hard that is. So we need everybody on board, and we got to be clicking on all cylinders. That means the fans and everybody. We got to eliminate all that negativity and keep that positive energy.
Yeah, and that's something we take pride in here at Boilers in the Stands. These guys are close to the program. I've been close to it here for the last 5-6 years, and we try to promote positivity. We're going to be critical. We're going to, do our analyzing and all that stuff, but we're, at the end of the day, we're fans first. And I think there's become this media faux pas that you're not allowed to admit you're a fan, and that's fine. I respect the people that are, the big J journalists that are going to separate those two things. But I do think there is a place for media that also is somebody that represents the fans. And we're always going to be here to be a bridge for everybody. And, and that, so I appreciate that message in a big way. Quickly before we let you go, because I know you got to get on to the rest of your night. When you talk about this team, when you talk about Matt Painter's evolution through this program and where he's gotten it, and you say, well, hey, it's not easy winning a Big Ten championship. They're 25th. It's not easy winning a Big Ten tournament. And fans are now saying that's not enough. I think that's a testament to what Matt Painter has built here, that the bar of expectation now is so high that those things are kind of just like, okay, yeah, that's great, but let's see what else. And it certainly has opened my eyes to just where this program is now. But for you, when you watch this team the last few years, and it's ended in tough losses, but they've reached new heights as a program, where do you see this year's team, being able to continue to be the hunted and fight through that adversity, which isn't as easy as being the hunter?
Yes. Well, I'll say this first. Regardless to what happened, they win it all. They struggle. My love for the program, that doesn't change. I don't look up at the scoreboard to decide whether or not I like the Boilermakers. I mean, that's in my soul. That's a part of me. So I don't need to watch them games. If I'm watching games, it's all the same. My love is all the same, and it'll always be that way. Now, as far as their team, they have every shot to cut the nets down. I mean, they got all the parts, but everybody knows that's the easier said than done. I'm not sure how many times in the last 50 years, whoever the teams that were picked to get there, did they really get there? So it's a lot that goes into it. And the number one factor, injuries. You got to make sure your key guys are always healthy because they have the parts, they have the coaching staff. I mean, you got eventual Hall of Famer Coach Painter, but you got elite level assistant coaches, administrative. They got all the parts, great fan base, everything you need to be successful. But again, it's just one game at a time. And I know that's easier said than done. And fans don't want to hear that. And please, I don't want to hear from a fan that's sitting there saying where we take Big Ten championships for granted. Are you kidding me? Can you imagine walking around with that kind of jewelry on? You take that for granted?
Hey, I saw the new Big Ten ring. Is your son showing off the bigger bling on you?
He is, man. He is, bro. I'm happy for him, man. But those Big Ten championships don't grow on trees, man. That's hard work. So, man, whatever Boilermaker fan, respectfully, please don't say that, man. Don't sit there and say we don't care about Big Ten championships. We the leader in Big Ten championships. We want to stay that way. I mean, and that's hard work. That's a commitment. Those are hours and hours and hours working on your craft to be the best you can become.
Yep, no doubt about it. I mean, you even saw here the last couple nights, Michigan State, falls to James Madison. IU had a tough night against Florida Gulf Coast last night. You don't take any game for granted, and it's not easy to win one game, let alone close to 30 like last year's team did. And then you can get to a point where you can potentially have great moments like this where you can cut down the nets, and you see Zach Edey there with the Big Ten championship trophy, shaking hands with Gene Katie. Those are moments that you just can't take for granted. So I don't know, Craig, Joe, do you guys got anything else before we cut Zoe loose?
No, I know he's got another event to get to. So, hey, if you had fun with us, though, put in a good word for Etuan. He was one of my favorites.
I will do that. And before I leave, I just want to acknowledge, Coach Bob Knight, the General Montgomery Knight, man, is just, of course, a phenomenal teacher and leader. Did great things, great players, great programs. That was the only place in the Big Ten I didn't get a win. That was the only place. But they did a great job. So just want to acknowledge that their program, because he brought a lot to the table, and he's one of the best that ever gone on that sideline.
Absolutely. Like I said, the Renaissance, you were part of a NBA, basketball era from college and pro that for me has had a significant impact on my life and a lot of people's lives, and basketball kind of changed, into what it is today because of that era. So honestly, we'd love to bring you on again because there's so many stories. I'd love to hear from you. Definitely want to hear some of your playing, NBA, stories. You played in the Jordan era. I always have NBA questions too. And I love hearing all the different things. I know you battled through non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I have friends that have had to go through that with their family, and their sons and daughters and stuff. So I think you have a great story. It's been great to get to know you here. Obviously, your playing days were when I was a young buck, so learning about your days, not to throw you under the bus there, Zoe, but hey, I'm the youngin here, but Craig was nice enough to get this, lined up. So it's been great to kind of get to know you here, and hopefully we can bring you on again when you have some time.
I appreciate you guys. Thank you guys for having me.
Yep. Take care.
Thank you.
All right.
All right. That is Cuonzo Martin, Big Ten champion, back-to-back Big Ten champion here, joining us here on Boilers in the Stands.
He claims
he
three.
says three. He says three.
Third.
I almost put that. I was gonna change his nameplate here at the bottom and put 3-time Big Ten champion, but I didn't want to throw anybody off. So we appreciate Cuonzo Martin, aka Zoe, coming on here at Boilers in the Stands. And thank you, Craig, for getting that lined up. Like I said, me and Joe were too young for those days, but I know that those were your glory days, Craig.
Those were my high school years. So his 4 years at Purdue were my freshman year through my senior year. So obviously I was watching Purdue basketball before that. But I was at an age where I was out hooping on the city courts of Centerville all the time and watching Purdue basketball all the time and really into my large fandom at that point. So what are you throwing up there?
Well, I don't know. This is great work, Craigery, because you did.
Yeah.
You did great work.
I think some of those guys on that other podcast nicknamed me Craigery or something. Drop that name.
What other podcast? Who's calling you Craigery?
Oh, the two guys that we bring on our show sometimes. Those guys from Sleepers, Carter Elliott and Greg Waddell.
Craigery? Well,
yeah.
Okay. Well, I mean, it is. It's a great job. Now you got a nickname too. You should be honored. So yeah, we appreciate that. And I honestly, I joke with you like, you were, I'm younger, but I honestly am jealous. I wish those were my high school days because, living through, I'm grateful that I got to live the Jordan days. And I feel bad for anyone like Joe who never got to live through those days. Like that's a time in basketball, and we all love this game that you'll never get back. I'm not like some of these people that don't like the game now for what it is. I definitely like how the game has evolved. It's not exactly the same, but there is no denying just how special that era was, college and pro. It was a lot of fun. It was just a different time. There was no social media, so you had to read the newspaper. Sometimes you had to, watch the 10 o'clock news to get some of your information on some of the teams around the country. But it was a great time to be a basketball fan. There's no question. And a big reason I'm the sports fanatic that I am today. Yes, we didn't get to ask him LeBron or Jordan. We know his answer. I mean, next time we bring him
I don't know. I really wanted to ask him about coaching Jaylen Brown too, because he's one of my favorite current NBA players. So he coached him when he was out at Cal, and he coached Michael Porter Jr. when he was at Missouri. So he's got some guys out there in the league playing right now that he certainly helped to develop at the collegiate level also.
He's just like Walter Jordan, where 30 minutes just ain't enough for a guy with that many stories and that long history, tenured resume of playing and coaching and perspective on this program. So the hope is we can bring him back on here at some point, and I'm sure he will, and we can pick his brain about some other things, but kind of wanted to get through some of the foundational things like Gene Cady and Matt Painter and his playing days first and foremost, and tell his story to our viewers for those of you that didn't know about it. And I tonight was a learning lesson for me as well, just continuing to ingratiate myself with this program and understanding the history. And that's important when you're a fan of a team, of any team, is understanding the history behind it. So thank you there. I don't know what else you guys got here, but while we start to round third on this episode.
I mean, I think the only big news today was it was the first signing day for National Letter of Intents of recruits.
The Boilers just ripped out a bunch of, they signed a whole team today.
Yeah, all 5 guys that were verbally committed to Purdue signed. So you had Catchings, Burgess, Jacobson, Cox, and Benter, all 5 of those guys. And I still can't wrap my head quite around how there's another spot, but Painter's even quoted in that they're still trying to get one more guy. I don't know. Joe's looked at the scholarship grid more than I have. Maybe he has an idea, but I'm confused by it.
I don't know. I don't know where that comes. Like, I mean, we heard in our, I believe it was our interview with Painter. If it's not, then I am sorry. We heard Painter say, like, at the beginning of the year that he asked, like, hey, are you, he asked, are they coming back for the COVID year and things like that? Maybe there's a thought of like, hey, you think you'll transfer after this year? And so maybe he knows somebody will. Because right now they're at 13. Like, they're all 5 guys signed, and this is assuming Edie, Gillis, Morton don't come back, who all have their COVID year if they want it. Assuming none of them come back, which I don't think any of them will, everybody returns, 5 freshmen. You're at 13. That is the max. So unless there's a 14th, I don't know about that's being added, or somebody's transferring, or the other, like, I don't see this happening. The other, I think this is going to be more of a thing going forward that I'm interested to see if it ever actually happens, is like, hey, we can't put you on scholarship, but we can give you a $300,000 NIL deal, and that'll take care of the scholarship for you. I don't think Purdue does that. I'm not saying that. I don't know where the 14th spot comes from.
Yeah, the only other thing that I did see mentioned was that if one of the commits in this class takes a prep year, but you'd think you'd know that, like, that's kind of where you were leaning at this point. I don't know.
Well, that would check out then.
Because that's what happened with Illinois' guy, right? Somebody that just took a redshirt year.
Well, he'd already played a year.
That's different. Yeah, he played last year.
Well, but I'd never heard of that before, where a guy that had already played, then, it wasn't an injury thing, right? I mean, he just decided to take the rest of the year off, even though he played a lot of last year. That seems shocking to me.
It's well, we don't know anything personal, obviously. If hopefully everything is all good there for him. I think it's probably just a minutes thing. Like, as much as Purdue, I just watched the Illinois game today.
Well, how common is that, Craig? Like, how common is that?
Dre Gibbs Lawhorn didn't look good.
It's not common, but the statement that he put out, he put out a really well thought out and well spoken statement about it, basically just saying, hey, I know I'm not strong enough right now. I need to get stronger. I need to keep working to be able to get minutes on this team, and that he wasn't going to burn a year not being able to provide that. He was just going to work. So, if that's what it is, kudos to him for, I guess, kind of being able to look at the situation and realize that, he still wants to be with the Illini and not transfer off to somewhere else, and that he just needs to get better. So.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. And then, Jeff Parks with the same observation, JB saying it too. Even if they redshirt, they'll be on scholarship. So would you imagine this Jacobson, Jeff Parks has 7-3. I see there's a 7-3 guy coming in that I see is a redshirt for sure. Jacobson certainly, because didn't Jacobson reclassify to be eligible? Isn't that what I read?
Yeah, he did. So I have no idea. I haven't watched. Obviously we've watched a ton of catchings, and we're really high on catchings. And I think what he's going to bring to the table at Purdue, we just haven't had at his position in a really, really long time. But outside of catchings, I haven't watched a ton of film yet on the rest of the recruits in this class.
Yeah, I caught Benner live up at the was it the one in Fort Wayne? I caught him live at the AAU tournament there. The rest I haven't even watched really catchings yet. But I'll have breakdowns over all 5, potentially 6 at some point. I have seen a little bit of Harris. I know we've kind of mentioned the 6th, the dude would be Jakari Harris. I've caught a little bit of him just by watching other high school players. I like what I've seen there. No clue. Obviously, I would assume if there's a 6, like that seems to be the leading candidate to be that 6. I assume we've cooled on Travis Perry at this point, the point guard out of Kentucky. I know we were one of his finals at one point. I don't know for sure. I'm just throwing stuff out there. That would be my guess.
Seems like it's starting to it's like an overspill here of people wanting to come into the Purdue program, which again is a testament to what Matt Painter is building here.
Well, and Cox, he was out watching Painter was when he decided to offer CJ Cox. That's how he really got to see him play, because they were playing against each other. And he kind of locked in and offered him, and he took it right away. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think it's Jakari or nobody personally.
Yeah.
But
JB said Perry announced a Final Five that Purdue's not in it. So thank you for that.
I see Mike
that would seem to be a pretty good tell.
I see Mike here in the chat saying Catchings is going to end up big dog status. Your thoughts on
it? I mean, that's hard. Big Dog was #1 pick overall in the NBA draft. So I don't want to put any measure that huge weight onto somebody who hasn't even set foot on campus yet. But
yeah,
he's a legit potential one and done without a doubt.
Yeah. And even putting him at Jaden Ivey's level, like we were talking about with Miles Colvin, like even that's unfair, like even though Jaden was only here a couple of years, like the quick ascension that he made, even if Catchings is a higher end prospect coming in than what Jaden was until he started to prove who he was, like let these guys get to that point first, starting to put those labels on players before they even put the Purdue threads on is asking a lot of a young kid.
Yeah, no doubt.
Yep. But it's fun to dream, right? I mean, nothing wrong with dreaming, but let's compartmentalize that hype here in the chat and don't project it onto them on social media and on on game day and stuff like that. So but it certainly is going to be exciting. I mean, you're seeing a different type of recruit every year coming into this program that just starting to show the consistency of higher end talent every year, kind of up in the ante with that. So I'm excited to see I know you guys did the chart. You guys do those charts that I really enjoy where it shows the different years of eligibility structure as we go forward and seeing how it lines up each year. And these next few years are certainly going to be just as fun as this year to be a Purdue men's basketball fan.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really exciting. And for a team that's maybe lacked super athletic and explosive wings in some recent years, we're going to have our fill of that when next year rolls around, between people that are already here right now and who's coming in. So I think it's got to be a really exciting brand of basketball, but I don't want to look ahead right now. We've got a top 5 team in West Lafayette right now, and I just want to enjoy the season for what it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we're going to do. We got another game coming up here on Friday. Joe and I will be in attendance. Craig, you're out of town on Friday?
Yeah, I'll be at the North American International Livestock Exposition. I actually have to leave as soon as I take these headphones off and head to Louisville. Make sure to say it right. Kentucky.
Louisville.
Louisville.
No, it's Louisville.
No, it's not.
Why do you gotta sound like? Why do you have to pronounce it like you're having a stroke? Louisville. It's Louisville.
It's the way they pronounce it. It's Louisville. So I got to head to Louisville, and then I will be back Sunday night. So I'll be back for the games next week, but I will be gone on Friday. Probably won't even get a watch.
Well, that's not good, and it's also not acceptable. I'm kidding. Everybody's like, Craig. I know Craig is right. I'm trying to change the game here, people. I mean, I know Craig is right. And if I go to the game and I don't get a free chicken sandwich on Friday, I'm going to be pissed off.
You guys could do that, and then you could give like a live review.
I would love to give a live review of a chicken sandwich. on Friday night. Do you get it
Yeah.
at the stadium, or do you gotta get it when
No,
you
you have to,
leave?
like-
No,
right?
you got to go get it. Yeah.
I think it's the next day also.
Okay. Now it's starting to become too much work. I mean, to me, if we win the chicken sandwiches, I want them handed to me as I'm walking out the stadium. But I guess
Yeah, I don't think it's quite like that.
we could just leave this up till the end of time. This could just be a
Craig was right.
permanent lower third here on Boilers and Sand. Craig is right. Blake Widmer, you're from Chicago. That's why you can't pronounce Louisville correctly, Braggs. Well, yeah, I'm an idiot. So no denying that. So yeah, no, it is a fun night talking to Cuonzo Martin. Want to continue to, give you guys the best coverage we possibly can. So Friday night we'll be in the stands doing our thing. If you're at the stadium, make sure you come up and say hi. We'll be around, and then Monday, are you going to be back Monday, Craig, for Xavier?
Do you even listen when I talk, Greg?
No. No,
I said I was going to be back on Sunday, and I will be at the game on Monday.
Okay. So Craig's confirmed to be back on Monday. Maybe I wanted a double confirmation in my
Okay.
Midwestern goodbye. Rowlett Boyer.
I've already done the best chicken sandwich poll, Jeff. That was a few years ago, but I already had that battle.
Well, who has the best chicken sandwich?
I'm a Popeyes guy.
I mean, Culver's, their spicy chicken sandwich with the,
Nope.
don't Have you ever had it?
Yeah.
It's very good.
Dude, people in Wisconsin don't know how to make spicy chicken.
I
want that southern spice when I eat a spicy chicken sandwich.
Okay. All right, that's fair.
I don't want that fake red stuff rubbed into the crust.
I just like fast food and I miss it. The Wendy's spicy chicken sandwich, Rowlett Boyer's doing. Everyone's getting mad at me for my Culver's. I'm sorry. I like their chicken sandwich. God damn it.
Yeah. You're going to have a whole nother round of Craig is right again. So,
Yeah.
All right, well,
I'm a Slim Chicken.
all right. We're arguing about friggin' chicken
We
sandwiches.
are welcome
Let's
to-
wrap it up.
Oh, that's right. You got to leave.
Yeah.
Yes, I see Mike's making fun of me. All right. Well, you got anything else, Joe? You got anything else here?
One really quick comments. I
Real
meant to
quick.
say this with the recruits is only out of those 5, only one is from Indiana. Just is I don't think there's anything like more in depth than that, but it's just an interesting. Is Painter's been a big Indiana guy.
Yep.
Not only one from Indiana is Benner.
Okay.
Well, and catchings. I take it back. Two catchings.
Right. Yep. So thank you all for tuning in here tonight. We'll be back, Joe and I, Friday night after the game. We'll try to go live as fast as we can. But we're going to probably pop into the press conferences before we go live. So just be patient with us. And when we get on, we'll break it down and talk about what we've seen here in game 2 of the Purdue basketball season. Any quick thoughts you guys had with Michigan State falling to James Madison, or last night with Florida Gulf Coast? I know you got to go, but that was 2 things we didn't talk about, was James Madison taking down Michigan State. Tom Izzo's first, Craig just left. Tom Izzo's first ever loss, home loss in November, I thought was certainly noteworthy. Losing to unranked James Madison, their first win in school history against a top 5 team. And then Florida Gulf Coast giving Indiana all they had at Indiana, and no Isaiah Thompson in that game. Quick thoughts on either of those games, and then I'll let everyone do the rest of their lives.
MSU, I think they'll be fine. I think they showed a little bit of the holes with just, hey, you lost Joey Hauser. Who's going to shoot the ball with, especially if Walker and Akins are off like they were. I don't know if I actually trust anybody else. Cohen Carr is elite. I am so excited to watch him. The IU side, the offense is going to be a grind until they figure out what they want to do actually, and kind of what they specifically in the half court. defensively, I'm bought in on them though. Like Killua is, I think, going to be a monster this year. I think Craig would probably say Trey Galloway. I would say Killua was the best player on the floor last night for IU, and I don't know how close it was. Galloway also a big part of that on the defensive end though. But then on offense, they got to figure something out. They also defensively, the one thing they do have to figure out is Renew is getting ran all over the place on the perimeter. That was why FGCU was in the games, because they were knocking down those threes. So, but I don't know. They're games that are in November that once we come January, February, nobody's going to really remember it all. Even the MSU loss, it'll eventually go away, I think, for them.
Yeah, but it does, Craig, doesn't it have seeding implications to it, losing a game like that?
I mean, potentially. It depends on what happens in the rest of the season, but obviously they're going to look at the weight of the entire season, and for the Indiana, just being a relatively close win, I don't think it's going to matter a whole lot. But obviously for Michigan State, it might. But I think they have some similar problems and some that are dissimilar. I mean, long story short, with IU, like Woodson got 4 power forwards, either in recruiting or from the transfer portal. And just how are they going to all fit around each other? When they went on their run, he took Mbako out and had more guards out there at that point in time. And maybe that's what he's going to figure out he has to do. And then on the other side of that, they both have the same situation with their point guard of whether they get the good version or the bad version from one night to the next. Hogard and Johnson can both be really, really good, and they can both have nights where they're not very good at all. And I think you saw both of them for large stretches of the games just be okay at best. With Michigan State, they still have no post presence. They have no serviceable center for Big Ten play in any way, shape, or form. And then you have Malik Hall at the 4, who's like the potential of the greatness of Malik Hall has been out there and been discussed for year after year after year. And it's kind of like thinking you saw the Loch Ness Monster. You might see it through the mist and think you saw it, but it's never really there.
Okay. All right. I see Mike in the chat said Craig's country sprang forth because his voice is giddy for livestock. Yeehaw to Louisville. I love Icy Mike. And then final question from Jeff Parks. Any Feed the Post content plans coming, Joe?
So tons of threads on Twitter is the main focus right now. I am trying to get through every single Big Ten game. I think I've watched 9 of the 14 teams at this point. Also want to get to the women's side. There's 57 Big Ten games this week. See how many I get to, but in theory, I'm going to get to most of them. So in terms of YouTube, this week's off. I'm going to get videos out probably at least one next week. Also a podcast once a week is I think what I'm going to do on the weekends, where I just kind of almost like just ramble about whatever I want to in the Big Ten. But that's kind of where I'm at with all that stuff.
Well, it's certainly not rambling. It's good information, and we appreciate your hard work on all of that. Obviously, I appreciate both you guys and your hard work here. Thank you again to Cuonzo Martin, former Purdue Boilermaker, back-to-back Big Ten champ with a great story. And thank you all for tuning in. Please hit that like button and subscribe on your way out. And like I said earlier, we will see you Friday, and always boiler up.